Welcome to episode 496 of the Recruitment Marketing and Sales Podcast. And I'm your host, Denise Oyston. And today we're continuing our Standing Out in 2026 series. And if you've been following along, you'll know we started with mindsets. Then last week we talked about being more active and more visible. And this week I want to talk about something that could potentially be the fastest way to generate business this year. And yet, for some reason, it's one of the most neglected areas we see in recruitment businesses. And we are talking about, drumroll, your database, your past clients, your old contacts, the people sitting in your CRM and your LinkedIn connections who already know who you are. So here's the thing. Most business owners are so focused on finding new leads that they completely ignore the warm relationship they already have, the ones that they've been building for years. This is like leaving money on the table. So today we're going to talk about why your database is a goldmine, why it gets neglected, and how to re-engage those contacts in a way that actually feels natural, not awkward. So let's get into it. Welcome to the Recruitment Marketing and Sales Podcast. An obsessive focus on marketing and sales is the only way to accelerate your company growth. So listen in now as we share the latest strategies and techniques guaranteed to deliver you more placements and profits. Well, hi there everyone. Hope you and yours are well as we continue with our series on standing out. And today I want to talk about something that is so underutilized by many business owners. They just simply forget, or they have various things that go on in the mind that tells them that this strategy doesn't work, that they don't bother to do it, and it works probably the easiest of all strategies. And that strategy is all about leveraging what you've got already. That hidden gold mine of current connections. So let's start with the question. How many contacts do you actually have across your CRM and your LinkedIn connections right now? Yeah, you could talk about your company page, you could talk about your Facebook page, but just for now, in Instagram obviously, but for now, let's just look at your CRM and your LinkedIn connections. So we're talking about past clients, place candidates, people you've spoken to over the years, connections maybe you've made at events, and obviously all those LinkedIn connections that you've built up over time. Now, for most recruitment business owners, that number is in the hundreds. More generally, it's in the thousands. And some of you listening right now probably have 5, 10,000 or even more LinkedIn connections alone. And yet, when we ask how many of those people you've heard from in the last few months, the answer is normally not many. And here's why this matters so much. In fact, we could ask two questions. How many of those have you contacted in the last few months, or how many have you heard from? But here's why this matters so much. Database re-engagement is one of the most cost-effective marketing strategies available to you and potentially every single business owner on the planet. These people already know who you are. Some of them will have worked with you, some of them will have been on your database, receiving your emails, and some of them will have even had a conversation with you. They accepted your LinkedIn connection request, they got onto your database, however that was. They do not need to be convinced that you are legitimate. The trust building work has really, to a large extent, it's already been done. Because think about this. And you've heard me talk about this many times. Email marketing has one of the highest returns on investment of any marketing channel. And the reason is simple. Your list is an owned asset. Now, There's a moot point about your LinkedIn connections. Are they owned or are you just renting them? We're not going to get into that here. You're not paying for adverts to these people. You're not fighting an algorithm. You're simply staying in touch with people who've already, and in marketing jargon speak, it's called raise their hands and said, yes, I am interested in you and what you do. So one of our clients did exactly this, just to give you an example of what's possible for you on the other side of listening to this podcast. He focused on re-engaging his database. He used different types of insight-focused emails. Within 3 months of sending his first campaign, he basically secured 100K's worth of new roles with a client he'd not spoken to in absolutely ages. Now, that's not a typo. That's from people who were already in his database, just waiting to hear from him. So let's just talk about the buyer's cycle. Trendy speak now, people like to call it the awareness cascade. So let's talk about why these contacts are so much more valuable than cold leads. And I know that's logic, but let's just talk through it. Think about the journey somebody goes through before they decide to work with you as a recruiter. At the top, you have people who do not know you. They don't even know you exist. They are completely cold. We're not talking about people that don't know whether they have a problem or not. Let's just say that people that understand that working with a recruiter works, but they don't know you. They've never heard your name. They've never seen your content. They've never had a conversation with you. Then you have people who are aware of you. Maybe they've seen your name around. Maybe they follow you on LinkedIn. You might have even met them at an event once, or they were on the same webinar as you and you were tic-tacking in the comments, whatever. They know who you are, but they are not actively thinking about you. Then you have warm people. They've worked with you before, or you've had a proper conversation. They've been opening your emails for years. They trust you. They're not in buy, and yet they're not in buying mode right now. And finally, you have your hot people. They have a need right now. They're ready to pick up the phone. They're ready to have a conversation with you. So here's the key insight. The people in your CRM and your LinkedIn connections are already warm. They're much further down this buyer cycle, this awareness cascade, than any cold lead you could find. Now, I am a big fan of cold connections and building that relationship. But here we're talking about one different aspect of marketing. We're talking about re-engaging what you already have, which means going back to those individuals, they are far more easier to convert when the time is right. Now, the only thing you need to do is stay front of mind so that when you do have a hiring need or they are ready to make a career move, you are the name that pops into the head. Now, so why does this get neglected? Your database is a huge, valuable asset, and yet so many business owners forget about it for some bizarre reason. They neglect it. And it's only often when we have conversations with people and they first start working with us or we're on a call with them and we start having a conversation, and then you can see the penny dropping when we basically uncover, ask them a few questions, realise that this person has maybe 20,000 people on the database and they're not really interacting with them. So what we see, there's a few patterns that we see. First, there is this obsession with the new, a little bit like the bright, shiny object that we talked about last week. Something is exciting about finding new leads. It's lovely, isn't it, to find a new lead, maybe a company that you're going to build a relationship with that's going to be really going to turn your business around. So there's that obsession. It feels like progress. Reaching out to the same people again and again can feel like you're going backwards, but that is completely the wrong way to think about it. Those existing contacts and connections are not old news. They are warm relations you are having with people, and they are just waiting to be reactivated. So, second, the other issue that we often see is there's a lack of systems. Most recruitment business owners do not have a process. And again, I mentioned this last week, we work with a lot of micro businesses, but they don't have a process for staying in touch with their database and their LinkedIn connections, particularly at scale. They might reach out to individual contacts, maybe somebody in their WhatsApp, maybe when they remember, but there's no real consistent rhythm to it. There's no automated sequences. There's no regular touch points. And without a system, as with anything in life, without a system, those reach outs, those connections, they're just not going to happen. And now the third one, and this is a real big thing, and it takes us back to the first podcast we did in this series around mindset. And that is that there's a fear of being annoying, bizarrely. People worry that if they email the database or message the LinkedIn connections too much, they'll be seen as pushy or salesy. They do not want to bother people, so they stay quiet. But here's the reality. If you are sending genuinely useful content, you're not being annoying, you're being helpful, people only get annoyed. This is something to remember. People only get annoyed when you send them stuff that is irrelevant or purely promotional. If it's just a pitch all the time, people get cheesed off with it. Now, the fourth one, and this is something that we can all handle, is that it's called the data decay problem. Contacts can go stale, people change jobs, email addresses bounce. So if you've not cleaned up your database in years, it can feel overwhelming, even to know where to start. The same goes for LinkedIn connections you made many years ago and you've never followed up with. However, there are plenty of ways to clean up your database and things like that. Speaking of the challenges that we discuss on this podcast around attracting the clients that you want and the candidates to fill the roles that you get, it's a competitive market. And Sharon and I have taken some time away from the business to actually put together something that will help you figure out exactly where you stand with your marketing right now. Now, we've created a quick assessment specifically for recruitment search and staffing business owners just like you, and it's designed to help you identify whether you're effectively attracting both clients and candidates with your current marketing approach, or if there are some gaps that you need to address. Now, this quiz will just take a few minutes and it'll give you a picture of where your marketing is working and where it might be falling short. Because to be honest, in a market where 87% of companies are struggling with skills gaps and candidates are ghosting left, right and centre, your marketing really does need to be spot on. And when you've taken this assessment, we will email you your personalised PDF. So it's personalised to you and it's related to the scores that you achieve and where you fit in a ranking. And what we know works when people are low on one score or high on another. And I think you'll find that incredibly useful too. So if you want to know and find out about your marketing, how it stacks up, then go to superfastrecruitment.co.uk/scorecard, and that will take you to a page. Put your name and email address in there, and then you'll go straight into the quiz. And again, it only takes a few minutes. Trust me, it's worth the time, especially if you feel like you're not achieving the results that you want currently with the market the way that it is, and you really want to assess where you are so you can make some changes. So let's get back to that podcast. Let's just look at this database conundrum that we've got and the real cost of neglecting that database of yours. So let's talk about what happens when you do not stay in touch. So that client you placed 3 candidates with 2 years ago, they have probably had vacancies since then. But if they've not heard from you, they might have used someone else. Not because you did a bad job, but simply because you were not front of mind when the need arose. I think I mentioned, I've shared this story several times about a client that we were going down to pitch to in London. We ended up working with him and his team, and we were asking him about the connections that he had. And in between the first meeting and then a subsequent onboarding call, he'd actually reached out to 2 or 3 of his clients and discovered that they'd actually been using another company. They'd completely forgotten about them. And obviously he was a tad annoyed about this, as you might imagine, because he'd anticipated his team was going back to these individuals and they weren't. So just think about how that might happen with you. Or maybe I should say, could happen with you. Obviously not now you've listened to this podcast. But think about a candidate you placed 5 years ago who's now a hiring manager, could be sending work your way. But if you've forgotten about you, the referral is going to go to someone else. There's a LinkedIn connection, maybe who accepted your request 3 years ago. You never message them again. They might have the perfect vacancy for you right now, but they do not even remember who you are. Every relationship that goes cold and we know this is a potential opportunity lost. And the frustrating thing is, these are not strangers. These are people who are on your database that you already know, like you work with you or they've connected with you. The barrier to re-engagement with these people is so much lower than starting from scratch with a cold lead. I really want you to understand that. And when people first start working with us at Superfast Circle, this is one of the first campaigns we get them to run because it works so well for experienced recruiters. And we see this pattern constantly, that people do not connect with their database on a regular basis. They're so busy chasing new clients that they forget to nurture the ones that they already have. And then when the market gets tougher, they realise they have no warm pipeline. They have to start building from scratch again. But really, they already have a pipeline because it's already there and waiting for them. So let's talk about what effective re-engagement looks like. So how do you re-engage your database without feeling awkward or salesy? The key is show up, be visible and valuable. The key is to lead with value, not with a pitch. Nobody wants to receive an email or a LinkedIn message that says, basically, I'm checking in to see if you've got any vacancies. This is not a valuable interaction. This is just asking for something. You're making all about you rather than making it all about them. So start thinking about what you can give. What insights do you have about the market? What trends are you seeing? What challenges maybe are other companies facing in the sector? What would be genuinely useful that they would want to hear about? So it could be hiring trends, salary movements, a salary survey, maybe regulatory changes that's affecting their particular subvertical. Give them something worth reading. Another approach that works really well, and if you are not subscribed on our list, then you won't experience this, but please do subscribe to our list, is we send plain text messages. And these work incredibly well for your consultants to do that. It's okay seeing that glossy, fancy, super branded email. They genuinely do not work. What you want to do is create that message from a friend. So templated marketed emails do not work as well unless you are somebody like one of the high fashion brands when they do. But these tend to get, the text-based emails get a much higher response rate because it feels like one-to-one communication. So you can see that reaching out and doing this for the connections that you have really isn't that hard. And if you've got a bit more resource, you've got some more time, you can actually get a bit more sophisticated and you can have something known as behavior triggered sequences. They work really well. For example, if someone downloads a salary guide from your website, there could be a trigger of a multiple part email sequence with related insights, maybe a case study and then an invitation to a court. It feels timely, it feels relevant, it doesn't feel mega pushy. You're just demonstrating, here's the value that I can give to you. So you can see that this is really possible for you. And let's just a big reminder here about re-engaging with past clients, because I am making an assumption here that you've had a good relationship with your past clients. You never know what's going on for them now. So with these particular individuals, they deserve special attention. Money has changed hands. They've already paid you. They trusted you enough to hand over a fee. That is a significant relationship. And yet many recruiters make a placement and they don't necessarily go back and see what's happening. They move on to the next search, the next client, next fee. The relationship just goes really quiet until something happens. And then you remember to pick the phone up. Simple question for you. When was the last time You reached out to past clients to see how things are going, not to pitch, not to ask for work. I know this might blow some people's mind, but just really to maintain the relationship. A quick check-in every few months keeps you front of mind. Share a relevant article, some of the things I've talked about before. You could congratulate them on some company news. Ask how the person you placed is getting on. These are small touch points that add up over time. And do not forget the referral potential here. A happy past client is one of the best sources. New business, but they'll also refer you to people that they know. It's a bit of a human trait. The majority of us like to share good news. We have an electrician at the moment that's done some work for us, and he's just starting out in business. Well, he's going semi-retired from his corporate job, and he's done some brilliant work for us. And we've already shared his name with 3 or 4 different people who have now used him because of that. Those are the sorts of experiences you can have. It's just remembering to do that and ask for it. Now, here's something that often stops people, strangely. What to say when you've not been in touch? It's a bit of an elephant in the room, isn't it? What do you say when you've not been in touch for ages? It does actually stop a lot of people. They feel awkward reaching out after a long gap. They worry it seems strange or opportunistic. And here's our advice. Just don't overthink it. You're thinking people are thinking a lot more than they are. You do not need to apologize for being quiet. You do not need to explain why you have not been in touch. You do not need to share everything. Just reach out with something of value. It could be simple as, hi, Sarah, was thinking about you this week when I saw this article about changes in the finance sector. Thought it might be relevant to what you're dealing with right now. Hope you and yours are well. Really simple. Or another one could be, hi, David. Been doing some research on hiring trends in your sector. Thought you might find this interesting. Let me know if you'd like to have a chat about what we're seeing in the market right now. The key is to make it about them, not about you. Lead with value. Be genuinely helpful. The conversation will flow naturally from there. And will it produce results immediately? It may not do, but you have got the process then dialed in. And honestly, most people will not even notice how long it's been. They're busy with their own lives. They will just be pleased to hear from you. So let's talk about building a system that works. The real secret to database re-engagement, like anything in business and especially in marketing, is having a system, because if it depends on you remembering to do it, unless it's all diarised and you really do follow your diary, it is not going to happen, or if it does, it's going to be inconsistent. So at a minimum, you want regular communication going out to your list. Now that might be, let's just say, worst case scenario, a monthly newsletter with market insights. It might be a quarterly update, maybe on trends. It does not need to be complicated. It just needs to happen, and happen consistently. And if your LinkedIn connections, think about how you can incorporate regular touch points into your routine, commenting on the post, sending a quick message when they see you've been promoted, or the companies the companies in the news. These small interactions keep the relationships alive. Beyond that, think about segmentation. This is really important because not everyone in your database needs the same message. Your clients care about different things than your candidates. So, people in finance have other concerns than people in tech. The more relevant you can make your communication, the better it's going to land. And there is so much software around at the moment that you can use. And even the most basic email tools can really handle simple segmentation. Could be based on their industry, job level, how they entered your database. Even just splitting your list into clients and candidates is a good start. For instance, with us, we have people are tagged. So if people sign up for a webinar of ours, or people are booked a sales call with us, or people have gone through our Score app. If you haven't, shout out to our Score app candidate and client attraction scorecard. So if you just go to superfastrecruitment.co.uk/scorecard, we know people are really interested in getting their marketing working. So they have a separate tag. So we make sure the information we send to them is relevant for them. So what this does is it creates that rhythm of communication that keeps you visible without really getting you to have to think about it every day. So set up a system, get the content together. Obviously, these are some of the things that we do for our clients in Superfast Circle, and then let it run. So let's wrap this up with a thought for you. And that is, your database is not just a list of names. It's a collection of relationships you've built up over time, hard work for many years for some of you, sometimes decades. Every contact in your CRM, every LinkedIn connection represents potentially a conversation you've had, an interaction you've had, a placement you've made, a real connection you've formed. Those relationships are valuable, but they only stay useful if you nurture them. The recruitment businesses that are going to stand out in 2026 are the ones that, they treat the database as the true asset that it is. They stay in touch, they add value, they're visible, they keep those relationships warm so that when the time is right, they are the obvious choice. So, challenge for you this week, for the next few working days after you've listened to this, pick 10 contacts from your CRM or your LinkedIn connections who you've not spoken to in the last 6 months. Reach out to each of them with something of value. Not a pitch, just a genuine touch point. You might just be surprised at how many conversations start. And particularly if you've implemented some of the things that we suggested last week. So remember last week we talked about being more active, posting more on LinkedIn. And when you start to do that, you'll be surprised at how this will sort of help your conversation and how much business comes from simply just staying in touch. So if you've been listening to this podcast, you've probably been listening to it for a while. If you need to do more with your database, but you're not sure where to start, that's something we can help you with at Superfast Circle. So please do get in touch. That's it for today's episode. Thank you so much for listening. Next week, we're going to be talking about slightly longer form. We like to call it longer form content that can work so much harder for you. And if you've ever thought about starting a podcast, writing a report, building content around that, then definitely that's one that you want to catch. So this is Denise saying bye for now, and I'll see you next time. If you enjoy this podcast and this year you are ready to take your marketing to the next level, then check out Superfast Circle. This is a unique marketing program designed specifically for recruiters and their marketeers. You get access to 2 virtual marketing directors, you get consultancy, you get your hand held through the whole process, training, consulting, and we provide content resources. So go over to superfastrecruitment.co.uk/join and check out what's available.